guest line. Shop over 1,500 Toyotas indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. He is the co-host of the Fish Tank podcast, and of course, you could hear him post-game on the Miami Dolphins radio network with OJ McDuffie, Travis Wingfield, Seth Levit joining us here. Seth, good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. What's going on, man?
Everything is everything's as good as it can be after a 3-game losing streak. But everything is good. Good to be here. I apologize for the conditions being a little different than what I expected, but appreciate you guys putting up with me.
Nah, man, you sound good.
No, you're fine.
You look good. You sound good. So
I don't want that -1. I'm trying to avoid that.
No. Well, listen, it's deserved. It's show policy. Any slander towards Udonis Haslam.
Okay.
Seth, getting Tua back this week, how much do you miss him? I mean, like the idea that they're going to get him back, he's going to be back on the practice field.
Yeah.
It just feels like, it was going so well with him. It feels like that could just right the ship, just getting your guys healthy, having your QB1 back out there. How much are you excited to just see him back out there if we do on Sunday?
Yeah. I'm definitely excited to see him back out there. I mean, the offense just ran differently with him under center. It just did, regardless of how anybody wants to look at it. Now, there were a lot of other factors. We talked about it last week, and I think you could talk about it again this week. There are other reasons, other things that have contributed to the 3-game losing streak that I think were above and beyond quarterback play, but certainly not just not having your starter, but the fact that you've played 3 straight games where the guy who finished the game as the quarterback was not the guy who started the game, certainly was a difficult pill to swallow.
Here's my biggest thing is that, we made a terrible assumption in the beginning of the year that the defense was just going to pick up and we weren't going to have to worry about the defense. And they've taken a beating as far as injuries are concerned. And I think everybody's so caught up in Tua returning. I think it's more important that we get some of the defensive guys back.
We lose Seth, freezing on up.
It's a good question, Leroy.
You know what happened?
It was a good question.
You know what happened?
What happened?
Seal it on up.
Would be nice to see though. He did almost have that forced fumble. They got it back, but he got that, as they described it, big paw on it.
Big paw
on it yesterday.
Am I back?
So,
Am I back here? Okay, sorry.
You're back.
Crowder,
there you go, Seth.
I got Crowder calling me in the middle of your show. I never get an opportunity to get on air. Crowder's on every damn channel in America, and he's knocking me off the show. So I apologize for that.
That's okay.
So I think, Leroy, you bring up a great point that, I mean, they've been decimated in the secondary. They absolutely are missing some significant players, some who aren't coming back anytime soon. But I think that the larger I don't think you can ignore the quarterback.
Right.
That's huge. And this team, as much as I think everybody, and even Coach McDaniel said, it's the defensive team until proven otherwise. But when you look at the efficiency of the offense in weeks 1 through 3 compared to what it's been since then, and you think about how dangerous and how explosive Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are, you need the guy that can get it to him and get it to him in the right place and give him an opportunity to take a 20-yard catch and turn it into a 40-yard catch. And I just think that the team will run differently when he's there. But you still got to tackle. You still got to, you got to keep the other team from scoring as well.
Right.
And it'd be nice to not have to go into a fourth quarter having to come back. Even 2 of the 3 games that we won, one required an epic comeback, something that was historic. And then the other one, again, you had to come back in the fourth quarter. So it would be nice to see them get out there, get a lead and protect a lead and get a W.
Does this defense seem like it's doing kind of like the same thing they did last year, is that early on in the season, they tried to play it closer to the vest. And then when they realized that it wasn't really working, then they just said, you know what, we're going after it.
It's an interesting
that's what
question.
turned it around. And I'm just waiting for that to happen again, because if you're going to sit back and wait for these guys to cover with the injuries and how decimated you are in the secondary, you're actually giving the other team an advantage.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and I don't know the answer. It definitely does. It is a little reminiscent of last year, although I would say the defense, even with all of those guys out, the defense was pretty tough this past week. Minnesota has been putting points on the board,
Agreed.
and those guys delivered to me a performance that I think could have and should have been a winning performance. But it's a fair point, Leroy. It's also kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You don't have Byron and X healthy on the outside there, and so can you afford to have that cover zero? Can you afford to have Holland and Jones blitzing, and then who's covering up these corners that are your second, third, and fourth string corners if you don't have your safeties back there? So I don't know. It's definitely a tall order there for Josh Boyer, but I think they'll rise to the challenge.
What do you make of the penalty issues last week, Seth? Like that one drive they had, I mean, unbelievably frustrating because, they kept getting chunk plays. They were putting up yards, and then everyone just was getting called back by laundry. Do you think this is something Mike McDaniel can address? Is this something that just professionals got to be professionals? Like, what do you make of this issue? And do you foresee this continuing on this season, or do you think this is something they can kind of nip in the bud?
Yeah, I mean, they have to. You can't average 10 penalties a game. I mean, you just can't win football games like that. I mean, the two biggest things that he points to, turnovers and penalties, and they've been abysmal in that category, certainly the last 2 weeks. So, and Leroy could answer it better than I could. But it seems to me that Mike McDaniel, certainly everybody's still on board. Everybody's still, he's the leader. And this is an opportunity for him to step in there and say, look, we can't tolerate this. If you're going to continue, if you start to see penalties coming from the same guys, then changes have to be made. Something has to be addressed. But that one drive was one of the worst I've ever seen. Not only did you have 5 penalties in, I think, 6 or 7 snaps, but they were erasing 20, 30-yard gains. Sometimes you get the false starts. We've seen games where you line up and it's 1st and 10. Next thing you know, it's 1st and 25 because you have 2 false starts in a hold. But these were, you got River Craycraft getting 32-yard gains, diving over people. When you get an opportunity like that, you have to be able to seize the moment. You're not going to get too many 32-yard gains from River Craycraft. You can't waste them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So they have to address the penalties. You cannot win football games unless you are just obliterating teams, and they're not in a position to do that right now. So no, you can't give away that kind of. I mean, and we're not talking 6 or 7. There was 5 on one drive, 8 of them by the offense. I think 5 of those 8 were offensive line penalties. I mean, that needs to get fixed in a hurry.
Can you imagine you have 100 yards and you're not even in the midfield yet? It's they had 100 yards of total offense and they hadn't gotten to midfield yet.
Yeah. I mean, and again, and look, you come out there, think about that. Minnesota comes out there in those purple jerseys. It's 120 degrees on their sidelines. You force them to go 3 and out. And then you've got your rookie quarterback dealing on that drive. If you don't do that, you go up 7-0. Your home crowd is all into it and they're fired up. And you have an opportunity to impose your will on that team. And the defense held up pretty well. I mean, they really made those guys earn everything they could get, except for the long run at the end. And so I think that I'm excited that Tua's coming back. I think the entire team is. But there's a lot of things that need to be corrected. They can't – this is not winning football. Obviously, they've lost 3 in a row. But you can't just expect because Tua's back that you can miss field goals, that you can miss tackles, that you can have 10 penalties. All of those things need to be cleaned up. I imagine some of it will be just because the operation, in theory, should be more efficient when you have your starting quarterback in there. But, man, oh, man, you can't afford to have another one of those performances.
Talking to Seth Levit, co-host of the Fish Tank podcast with OJ McDuffie. They do a great job every single week with their interviews. Who do you got coming up this week, Seth?
Well, we dropped it today. Ed Perry. So Ed Perry was a tight end and long snapper. He was part of Jimmy Johnson's 1997 draft class that, produced the guy who signs my paychecks, a Hall of Famer, Jason Taylor. Sam Madison was now coaching for the team. But Ed was a 6th-round draft pick out of James Madison and ended up really finding his way as the long snapper and was one of the top long snappers in the league up until John Denny took his spot. And then we know Denny played here forever, and now you've got Blake Ferguson. But Ed is quite the character. And something that's critically important, Leroy will tell you this, Ed was also the team barber. So when you are the guy who's cutting everybody's hair, you're a popular cat in that locker room. And just like any barbershop in America, everybody's dirt. Everybody's sitting down in that chair. They're telling you all that noise. And so we had a lot of fun stories in there with Ed talking about cutting hair, whose hair he didn't like to cut. Randy McMichael said Ed almost cut his ear off one time. Ed denies that. But we had a lot of fun in this episode.
Hey, tell OJ I'm sorry about this weekend. and tell him
you're gonna get me in trouble.
Tell him I'll send him my address for that case of strawberry kiwi snapple.
Yeah, you might need to tell him that one yourself, Leroy.
So said during the game, at the end of the game, I say, man, I can't believe we just ran the ball all over you guys like that. And he goes, I'm not falling for this. I'm not even entertaining this. He said, you just trying to get me. I say, yes, I am.
Yeah, he was salty, man. He came in on the post-game show. He was, by the time we got to the post-game show, after that performance, he was so bitter. He said, my high school lost, Penn State lost, and then we delivered this performance. He goes, this is the worst weekend, so we cannot wait to get to Sunday night. Let me tell you that.
Yes. Yeah.
Seth, we can't wait to hear you on the post-game show with OJ McDuffie, Travis Wingfield. You guys do a great job there. And, of course, check out the Fish Tank podcast. They do a great job there wherever your podcasts are available. And we appreciate the time, man. We'll do it again.
Thank you, guys. All right.
All
right. We'll take a quick break here on the show. Keep on listening for your cue to call. Hear the Precious Chua song. Be caller 5 to 305-567-0560. I didn't like how you kind of like gave me the look on John Denny, the GOAT, and you seem to dismiss that.
He is the GOAT.
He is the GOAT.
Hold on.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a GOAT long snapper.
Oh, you're wrong, dude.
On,
you are wrong on that one.
Come on.
Wrong you are, sir. It took like 4 until they got to this guy Blake. It took like 4 long snappers after he retired.
Long snapper is a guy who couldn't quite play the other position.
Not John Denny, dude. That dude was a moose.
We played with a guy who I played with him in Cleveland. He was an offensive lineman. When I got to Minnesota, he played there for 12 years as a long snapper.
I cannot wait for John Denny's tell-all of the Dolphins eras he's been through. From Nick Saban to cocaine coaches.
Was he with Jimmy? Yeah.
No,
right.
he was. I think he was Saban, Philbin, Cam Cameron, Gase.
You know, Cam Cameron was my wide receiver coach.
I do know
Michigan.
that. Yes, you told me that he was a yeller.
He was a yeller. I'm like, what happened?
We need that thumb to go this direction.
Yeah. He would have. No, he would have gave you. If we're back in Michigan, he wasn't turning that finger up.
Keep listening for your cue to call. More Tobin and Leroy back after this.